Gabby, in case you haven't met me before, and I'm founder of Diversity Alliance. I'm delighted to be introducing our next guest for our the second week of our LGBTQ History Month campaign, which I'm really excited about. But before we get started, as always, I'm just going to explain a little bit about what I'm wearing, what I look like. So today, I've gone quite low key today for me, actually. So I'm in a black cardigan with some kind of like Demonte bows on. I kind of bought it for Christmas and didn't wear it. And I've got long dark hair, I've got some gold chains on and some gold hooped earrings. As usual, I've got the red lipstick on. And today I've changed my background a bit. And I'm sitting on the floor actually, because I wanted to kind of mix it up. But I might be in another area of the room next week, who knows. But behind me, I've got a pink kind of like chaise longue sofa and some multicolored pillows. But without further ado, let's not talk about me and let's introduce the guest for this week. I'm going to hand over to you, Al. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, thanks, Gabby. I am Al, short for Alasdair, but no one can spell it. So I'm Alasdair. I am the co-founder and director of the Intrepid collective. We are an events agency that specialises in connecting brands and locations to their communities, to their customers, and to their prospects. In a nutshell, that is us.
Love that. Brilliant. And tell us a little bit about your because actually you've had a new barnet.
Yes, you've spotted that well. So I feel compared to your actually talk about my appearance first. So I'm wearing a black and white sort of check jumper. I have got short blonde hair. It's not normally naturally this blonde. It has been cosmetically, chemically enhanced a little bit. I know it looks very natural, but it isn't. And I'm sat here in my house against a very, very plain white background, recently redecorated, and the lack of furniture is not intentional. It's just the way in which I'm currently living.
Practical perspective, because we started leaning that way, and as we know, this kind of series is for event professionals, event planners, or any sort of sector who delivers events as part of their marketing mix, essentially. So anyone could be watching this. From a practical perspective, just really briefly to wrap up, what should events include, and what should we be thinking about when we're delivering events to ensure that they are inclusive, to the LGBTQ community, and in fact all communities? What advice would you give, tips?
So I think that for me, the purpose of events is for the sort of event host or organization to deliver a product or experience to their attendees, their guests, but also to build the relationship between themselves and their guest. So I think in terms of measures that can be taken to facilitate both of those, it's about creating an inclusive environment which might appeal to new audiences, which might appeal to audiences who haven't previously felt included, and about creating compelling content that speaks to that audience. So I think there are a few measures that can be taken from an infrastructure point of view. So on a very basic level, do your suppliers and all those that you're working with on your event, do they all comply with the 2010 Equality Act? Do they have an equality policy in place? Are your with the venue that you're working with, they'll have an evacuation procedure. Is that written in gender neutral language that everyone feels sort of comfortable engaging with? If we are looking at a venue, do they have gender neutral bathrooms? Further sort of infrastructure points, when you are inviting guests to register for an event, are you inviting them to give their pronouns? Are you if you're offering name badges, are you offering the opportunity to place pronouns on those name badges as well? Are you, in the event registration process, are you asking for someone's gender when actually you don't need to? Or if you are asking, are you giving an option to state other and to sort of give further details if they feel comfortable doing so? I think, we can look to normalize pronouns. We can look to normalize pieces like establishing a zero tolerance policy around homophobic, racist, sexist, or any other prejudicial language that just makes it very clear that they will not be tolerated, and therefore that people should feel safe to come to the space that you're creating for this event. the other piece that I would suggest is when we're looking at event content, and we're looking to sort of find speakers who can talk about sort of topics relating to this, that we work with speakers for whom it is their lived experience, or who are in a position to talk about the community themselves, their experience in the most authentic manner possible. Not only because you will be creating, better content that your audience will engage with in a more meaningful way, but at the same time, you are shining a light onto genuine lived experience, and therefore creating value around that, as opposed to working with other content providers for whom the value isn't apparent to your audience, and it will come across as less.
It does, it really does. And, you know, I'm really glad that you touched on quite a few of those that I'm working on with clients at the moment, actually, particularly around that kind of inclusive language and communication piece. So when speaking or delivering anything to an audience or attendees, ensuring that that language is inclusive. If you're being invited to come and speak, particularly if you're not from a underrepresented background, just really recognizing that words matter and that language is really important. It is how we build those connections and those relationships, as you've mentioned quite a bit in this interview, Al. So doing a lot of work around that, and around the pronouns piece as well, and looking at the registration process, and then how people can identify for themselves when attending an event. And those are really simple, practical terms, I would say, for sure. But is there anything else that you would kind of like to leave us with that you think's important that you want to share, Al?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this is such a wide-ranging topic, talking around inclusivity, and I think it can be quite intimidating for people looking to engage. I find it quite intimidating, when considering someone's pronouns or when considering someone's experience, and it's not my own. And I feel hyper aware, and I'm always worried about saying the wrong thing. The only thing I can say is that if we have a willingness to embrace experiences that aren't our own, and to acknowledge that, and we have a willingness to try, and we might make mistakes, and we have a willingness to be corrected and to take correction in the right way, then I think we can really move forwards. The reason I mention this is that we don't have to be experts to start moving forwards. I'm not an expert. I've sat here and talked about my own experience and some stats that I found, and books that I've read over a number of years. But so for anyone who is looking to engage with this topic, there are small steps that can be taken, and it's okay to get it wrong, as long as you have a commitment to moving forwards and doing better. That's
my approach when working with clients around this, because we are all worried that we might kind of offend, upset people. We don't want to do that, of course. But for me, it's like you've got to give yourself a break sometimes. For me, it's all about the approach and the mindset. If you're approaching something from a genuine place, an authentic place, you're genuinely curious and you genuinely want to do the right thing, you've got the right approach. And the mindset piece is recognizing that you don't know everything, that you will make mistakes, that you will be you will be corrected on occasions, and to be able to take that without taking it personally or be offended by it, for me, is the mindset piece. So for me, it's approach and mindset, even above making sure you get all the terms and language and terminology 100% correct, because we're all humans at the end of the day. And if somebody just come up and asked me the question, what's your preferred pronouns, I'd be very happy just to share. And if somebody got my pronouns wrong, I would sort of say, actually, this is how I prefer to be recognized. No one's going to bite your head off. Anyway, I digress, but
I was having a chat with a friend last week who mentioned Sam Smith. And Sam Smith uses they them pronouns, and my friend sort of misgendered Sam Smith in the conversation, which is a very natural thing to happen. Sam Smith hasn't always used they them pronouns, and I sat there and I was like, oh, do I correct you? Do I let this slide? And in the end, I was like, Sam Smith uses they them pronouns, in the same way that I hope someone would say that to me. And I felt a bit awkward saying it, but actually they just took it. They actually said thanks, and then we just carried on the conversation. Yeah,
brilliant. Exactly. And it's great that you feel comfortable. And that's another thing as well, be comfortable kind of upskilling, educating, correcting each other. There's nothing wrong with that. Isn't that what friends and colleagues are for? So
Yeah.
I think it's great that you did that. And it's always hard with they then, because, you know, from a grammatical perspective, you're like, it doesn't come naturally, does it? So you when you're trying to write a sentence or formulate a sentence, you're like, it takes a while. It takes me a while. It's something that we're learning, and we take on pop culture all the time, like new words, new phrases, and they become popular, and we get used to them. It's just the same. It's exactly the same thing. Right, I think we could go on for a while here, and we're just getting into our flow, but I'm going to have to close our conversation for today, as much as I've enjoyed it. And thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate your insights and you sharing your personal story and a little bit around your knowledge of LGBTQ history. So thank you so much for joining today.
No, it's been the biggest pleasure. Like I said, thank you so much for inviting me, and it really means a lot to be able to add a small voice to the conversation. So thank you.
Thank you. Till next time.